All right, so we here, not in the studio, but in the classroom today, so if the audio sounds a little different, that's the reason why, but let's get it going. Today I want to talk about particular types of problems that you're going to see on the Regents that's either going to say solve algebraically or they're going to ask you for roots, or they're going to ask you for zeros. So anytime you get a question which has a variable to the second power and they ask you to solve algebraically or find the roots or find the zeros, you can actually use this method. Again, I'm going to say it again and again and again. I recommend that you learn how to do all the factoring, all the completing the perfect square, and know how you can do that for your future. But if you're stuck and you need a process to get the answer, this is what I find can be somewhat closest to the easiest route. Okay? What I'm going to teach you about is called the quadratic formula. Now, anytime you're solving for algebraically or for roots or for zeros, the first step is to set the equation equal to 0. So I'm going to minus 180 on both sides over here. This is going to cancel out, and I'm going to be left with 5x squared minus 180 is going to be equal to 0. Cool. So now that I got that, what's the next process? Now is this. You actually have to commit this to memory. I recommend you create a song or some kind of phrase to help you put it together, but it's negative b plus or minus, I'm going to tell you what that is in a second, the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Now, similar to as we would do with maybe a trinomial, we have to identify a, b, and c. Okay? To do that, we got to be accustomed to the general formula. ax squared plus bx plus c. A was always going to be the coefficient, or the number next to x squared. B is always going to be the number that's next to x to the first power, and c is always going to be the constant, a regular number by itself. Okay? So now, with that being said, let's identify it. In this case, a is going to equal to 5. B, when there is none, b is going to be equal to 0. Because there's no x to the first power, so b is equal to 0. And then c equals to negative 180. From here, all I have to do is plug in and simplify. Okay? So now I'm going to have x equals to negative, and if b is 0, it's literally just going to be 0, plus or minus the square root of 0 squared minus 4 times a, which is 5, times c, which is negative 180. This is all going to be over 2a, which is going to be 2 times 5. Now I'm just going to continue simplifying. Okay? I'm just running through it. So then now x is going to be equal to, I'm not going to leave the 0 anymore because it's just 0, plus or minus the square root. And I want to multiply what's inside there and multiply what's down below. Down below, I got 2 times 5 equals to 10. And then over here, I'm going to pull out my calculator, and I'm going to have 4 times 5, which is 20, and times 18. So let's just get that calculator and get that calculated. So we're going to have 20 times 180. So I'm going to have 3,600. Okay, cool. So now let's continue simplifying and smooth down. So it's going to be x is going to be equal to plus or minus the square root of 3,600. Now, the first step in simplifying radicals is seen as the perfect square. So if I took the square root of 3,600 in my calculator, it actually gives me 60. Now, here's where the plus or minus part comes in. Okay? So x is going to be equal to plus 60 over 10. And x is also going to be equal to minus 60 over 10, okay? And that's what the plus or minus means. It means when you get to the end of your answer, you're going to have two answers, one positive, one minus. So over here now, x is going to be equal to positive 60 over 10, which is going to be equal to 6. And then x is going to be equal to negative 60 over 10, which is going to be negative 6. So this actually would be your answer for solving algebraically and finding the roots. Now here's a bonus. If I was given this same problem and they wanted me to factor it, one way that you could factor using the quadratic equation is work backward from here. So I'm going to have x equals to 6, and I want to set this equal to 0. So I'm minus 6, I get x minus 6 equals to 0. Same thing on this side. X minus 6, x equals to negative 6. So I add 6, and I get x plus 6 equals to 0. So what does that mean? That means if I have x minus 6 and x plus 6, I can multiply this out, and I'm going to get the factor of the original minus any greatest common factors that were factored out. So if I factor out the greatest common factor and I get something I don't know how to factor, I can use the quadratic formula down, and then I can work my way back. But again, that's a bonus. Your answers are right here and right here using the quadratic formula.